This is John from OptixEQ with October the 19th race of the day. We're going to use race 5 at Belmont. And we're going to start with the plot. And at the end of this, I'm going to just, not going to go through a deep analysis, but I will attach a sheet to this video where you can kind of read and you can see the complete kind of total analysis. But I really want to kind of focus on the pace analysis of this race. So we start with the plot fit. This is generally what I do is what I'm looking for here is a plot fit that's either yellow or green. And yellow means it's just an average fit. In this case, we have a yellow plot fit for race 5. And you could see the shading that goes diagonal is really kind of the alignment we're looking for. We're looking for the circles and squares to fit into that shading. And you can see for the most part they do, with the exception of the 5 and 8. And that's why it's an average fit. It would be green if all those, if the 5 and 8 were inside of that yellow shading. And that's really what we're looking for. It's an alignment. It's something that we look for, and it's worked well for us. So that's kind of the first thing I look for. We're trying to understand how predictive is the plot to the potential pace scenario. So the next thing I do is try to validate the plot position with the plot filters. And what does that mean? Well, I look at standard filter, and you can see it highlighted here in the on the left-hand side. And that's the plot standard using standard filter. On the right, it's surface and distance. So today's race is a turf route, and you just want to make sure that those plots just don't look out of whack. In other words, they don't look completely different. And the reason why this is important is you just want to make sure that there are certain horses that maybe haven't tried the distance, first time turf, first time stretching out. And, we just want to make sure that, we're kind of comparing apples to apples. And again, this helps with reliability in terms of the plot or the pace scenario as a predictive kind of thing. So in this case, it looks good. We have just a couple of exceptions, that being the 4 moves from quadrant 3 on the left-hand side to quadrant 1. But nothing dramatic, and we think this looks good from a validation standpoint of filters. So we're gonna move on. So once we've done that, we feel like we have a plot. And again, if you use scan or scan utility by just selecting greater than 3 plot fit and also no on the quadrant change, you pretty much can do what I just did. But I just give you the reason, giving you the kind of the reasoning and the logic behind it. So how can you use the header information to assess potential race shape? You could see that we have 2 components. One is contention, one is just speed rating. So what does the contention mean? It just means, are the horses going to be bunched up based on their past performances? Does it put them in maybe the same space? And we think in this case, it potentially does. So we think that this is a very contentious early pace. And we think the speed rating is above average at 44. So we have an above average speed rating. We're projecting some contention here. Again, things may change. I always check these things after scratches and so forth. But right now, that's our assessment. So based on that, we would say that potentially it looks like horses that were coming off the pace, pressers, closers, and closers, would have a slight advantage. Again, most races do favor early pace, so always kind of keep that in mind. But here's a scenario where that might not be the case. So how did the preferred run styles match with today's pace dynamics? So let's kind of evaluate, the early speed and pressers. And that's the 4, 8, and 9. And, if you're just kind of looking at this, again, you're not trying to definitely say, oh, this horse is going to get the lead, this is the way it's going to run. It's impossible to really predict every little component, how much pressure is going to be applied. Really, what you want to kind of do is look for kind of some obvious things. And in this, it looks like the number 8 looks to be compromised from an early pace perspective because he's going to be way down. He's way down on that y-axis, and when it comes to the second call again, it looks like he might be compromised in this scenario. Again, pace handicapping is only one leg of the 3-leg stool. We want you to look at speed, class, and form, which is the biggest thing. But just to get a feel, like you're going through these, and let's say, for instance, someone gave you a horse, or you just want to assess a horse, or you really like the horse for some reason, this is a good tool. It's a great pace handicapping tool to say, ooh, this might worry me. I see this 8 down here, and, maybe I misread this, and maybe I'm not understanding the pace dynamics of this race. So that's really, what this is intended to do. And when we're looking at the pressers and closers, it looks like the 5 is way up on that y-axis, which is a good thing. That to me, that's a favorable thing. The 7, who's kind of in quadrant 1, that's okay. Just there's nothing there that kind of gets me going either way. But when you look at the closers and the deep closers, who are all in quadrant 4, it looks like the 1 and 2 are compromised versus the 3 and 6. And you see there in red there because they just don't match up. Those are horses that are going to have to come from off the pace, who just don't look like they have late pace. And late pace, again, is measured by squares versus circles. So that kind of what stands out to me. So the things that stand out is kind of the 8 in the early pace scenario, the 5 as a presser, who could be just get the right kind of trip, and then the 3 and 6 look a lot better than the 1 and 2. The things that I take out of this assessment. Okay, so that's really our kind of pace analysis. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to take you through this entire. I've kind of included the form cycle and all the other information and notes and stuff. And if you look at this chart, I've included the last 3 Optics Notes grades along with the last 3 Optics Figs. So I will attach this with this video. I'm not going to kind of review it, but I just want to give you a sense of how to use OptixPLOT, which is a really cool handicapping tool, how to use it interactively to make assessments on which horses are going to get the benefit and which horses maybe not going to get the benefit of today's pace dynamics. Yeah, any more questions on OptixPLOTs or any of our products, contact us at customer@optixeq.com. And any comments or on future webinars or even race of the days and information, let us know.